Hi everyone, welcome back to Novel Nomad and welcome to a bit of a different video. I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favourite manga reads. I started manga in high school and thankfully my friends were also reading manga, so we shared a lot of our manga, but I typically stick to what is called the shoujo manga or girls manga. It is relationships, contemporary settings normally, but I do have a few exceptions in here that I want to share. But I usually loved really unique and different mangas. I didn't go for the big names always, but I did get to read some amazing shonen, and that is like boys manga, so you think of Naruto, you think of Bleach, those big names, One Piece of course. Those ones I did get to read in high school. I still didn't finish them because they're so long, but I did get to read some amazing shonen, and I have kept my favourite mangas. I still have all the volumes, and yes, I reread them because it's such a great quick read to get over a book hangover. So my absolute #1 recommendation for manga is Ouran High School Host Club. This is the most ridiculous contemporary manga I can think of. It is about a girl who is a scholarship student. She gets to go to Ouran High School, which is for all the wealthy, privileged students in Tokyo. I think it's set in Tokyo. But she is on scholarship, and from middle school she cuts her hair really short, and everyone just assumes she's a boy because she wears quite baggy clothing. She doesn't like wearing the dress, and so she just wears the boys' uniform. So everyone has just assumed that she is in fact a he. And so one day she stumbles across the host club. So if you don't know what a host club is, it is basically almost like an escort service. It is nothing sexual. The women of the high school, and sometimes the men, like to come and have tea and have an afternoon with the host, and they get to have lovely conversation, chat and banter. But of course all the hosts, which are the boys in this group, are completely ridiculous, and it is so funny having this very real perspective from this scholarship student's perspective of how ridiculous the lives of the wealthy are, that they even have a host club in high school. I definitely recommend this one if you're thinking of getting into manga, wanting somewhere to start, and you want something that reminds you of a funny contemporary YA. Host Club, definitely Host Club. This is a series I've mentioned before, and that is Rurouni Kenshin. This is one of my exceptions from the shoujo. This is actually called shonen, once again boys manga. This is the historic story set just after the Meiji Revolution. The Meiji Revolution happened during the 1860s, 70s, around then. So putting it within Western history, you can see how soon this had happened, and samurais were basically outlawed from that time. And Rurouni Kenshin is a wandering samurai, but what makes him quite unique is his sword is actually a reverse katana. So instead of having the blade on the outer edge, it's on the inside edge, so he can't actually kill anyone, and he's doing this as a bit of repentance for his past. But of course his past never quite leaves him alone, and he is drawn back into the history that was the Meiji Revolution, in these kind of small rebellions that are happening at the time. It is absolutely fantastic. There are 28 volumes in this series. You can get them as omnibuses now, so the big 3-in-1, but it's so much fun. I really loved this. If you want to get into the live action movies, they are also great, or the TV shows, the anime. The anime in the first 2 seasons are good, just ignore the 3rd. I explained it, I'll link the video why it is terrible, but yeah, definitely check this one out if you want a bit more of a historical fiction, a bit of romance, a bit of action. I just realised I haven't said the authors or the illustrators, or as known mangaka, of the series. So Bisco Hattori is the illustrator and writer of Ouran High School Host Club, and Nobuhiro Watsuki is Kenshin. I also, honourable mention goes to his Busurenkin series that I read immediately after I finished Kenshin. That was so much fun to read. It's very different, and I love Papillon from that series. He is the most outrageous character, but he is fantastic. He is a comic relief throughout the entire series. Next is quite an old one. I'm not sure if you still be able to find it, but I read the first 3 from a friend and I kind of got addicted. This is a shoujo. It is called From Far Away. This is actually a fantasy one where a modern girl in the 80s actually, I think, or early 90s, the illustration style is very different to these illustration styles of the late 90s and going into the early 2000s. This manga style is quite early. And what I loved about this one is actually a fantasy series. So you get to follow Norihiko, who gets drawn or sucked into this other world, and she is actually doesn't know her fate, and she has to learn the language, which is great because it goes through the process of her having to learn another language. Obviously you don't follow her day by day, it is over months and years, but in this way she's rescued by this man here, and there is something binding them. And she doesn't know what, but he does, and it is given away in slow hints. It has 14 volumes in this series and it was excellent, really, really fantastic. I reread this one I think the most. This is by Kyoki Hikawa. I'm not sure if you can still get it, but it is a shoujo. It's by Viz Media, but it was so much fun. You might be able to find it in a library somewhere if you did want to pick it up. This is more of a historical fantasy with romance elements. Right, going completely quirky. I don't know many other people who have read this manga, but it is one of my favorites. It is Land the Blindfolded by Tsukaba Sakura. This is such a fantastic contemporary story. It basically follows 3 high schoolers and they have certain abilities. 2 can see the future and 1 can see the past. And the main girl, Kanade, didn't realize that other people have this ability until she meets Aru. And she basically describes it as being in a land of the blindfolded, where her blindfold has slipped and she can see what is going to happen to people when she touches them or bumps into them. But his ability is very different. He can see the past of people by touching items in which they possessed. So he often has a lot of difficulty with his ability because he sees into personal lives of people. If something was traumatic had happened in a certain area, he will see it happen. So it is an absolutely amazing series. I really loved it. Great contemporary with a bit of fantastical elements. There is a 3rd character who comes into it. Like I said, he also sees the future. But what is great about this one, it's not the classic love triangle that you see in so many YAs. I hate the love triangle trope. I think if you were so passionate about someone, you would be passionate with that one person and just see everyone else as a friend. So this is what is great with this one. Kanade and Aru have a real deep connection with each other, and even though the 3rd character tries to butt in and he wants to be with Kanade, she really has a greater connection with Aru, so she stays with him and she is very loyal to him. So I really enjoy the series. There are 9 editions, and look, the publisher changed publishing styles halfway through the publication, but that's okay, at least they're the same size. Looks slightly different, but it doesn't, not too much, not too bad. So I definitely recommend for this one for anyone who likes a bit of a sci-fi fantastical contemporary. Lastly is a series which I got for a bit of a challenge and for fun. It is the high school debut. This series is super cute. I think I've read all of them now. Some series I'm only halfway through, but this one is really cute. I read it in English first. Once again, it's a shoujo where this girl has this guy who she's always liked, and she finally gets his attention when she asks him to help her be cool, because she has absolutely no fashion sense. She really tries, but she just doesn't have any confidence in herself, and she has asked this guy, who is like the epitome of cool at her school, to help her become more outgoing and to really create the visual image of the person who she is inside. This is a really cute series. It goes through, there's a great relationship in this one, but what I love about these editions in particular is that I bought them when I was in Rome. So this is in fact the Italian versions of the first 3 high school debut. It's super fun trying to read and translate in Italian. I did study Italian up to year 12 and I did some night school afterwards, but I still think it is quite fun and challenging to read a graphic novel. I do have the English translation still, but this one's always a good challenge. Alright, that is some manga for your day. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any recommendations, let me know down below. I do love discovering new mangas. I think Beastmaster is on my radar at the moment, and I need to finish Death Note. I think most of you will know I kind of got to a certain point halfway into this series and it completely shattered me. And then of course my friend who owned the series, she moved away. So I kind of didn't have access to the series anymore, but I definitely do with the libraries. So I need to finish them off, but I just know it's going to be so heartbreaking after a certain event that happens in Death Note. But that is one that I can recommend, but I couldn't entirely recommend it because I haven't finished the series. So let me know any recommendations for manga down below, and I'll see you next time. Happy reading. Bye.